Hello, my name is Danielle Flint, and with my partner Diego Vargas, we will be talking about the cognitive processes involved in L2 speaking. We have based this presentation on Cormus's model, and we have related it to the construct of CAF, which stands for Complexity, Accuracy, and Fluency. As EFL teachers in training, it is pivotal to understand the elements involved in oral production. Models, as the ones proposed by Cormus, attempt to explain how to interact with the cognitive processes involved in L2 speaking. It is built on the work of the original L1 speaking framework established by Levelt, which has been adapted for addressing some particularities that L2 speakers face, especially in light of memory research. As an interactive process of constructing meaning that involves producing and receiving and processing information, and an often spontaneous, open-ended, and evolving phenomenon, L2 speaking is a less linguistically complex process regarding writing, which has been studied under concepts such as communicative competence. It is a multifaceted construct that has important practical implications for EFL, ESO teachers to understand the complexities learners face when they produce a foreign language speech, as Bailey states. One of these complexities is balancing fluency, accuracy, and complexity, which are constructs conceived as the three proficiency dimensions. Thus, for instructional purposes, it is relevant to contextualize these constructs in correlation with the cognitive process involved in Cormus model modules. The aim of this presentation is to provide justifications and examples that explain how the modifications proposed by Cormus interact with the mentioned proficiency dimensions, emphasizing how they reach teaching implications. In this presentation, we will first provide a theoretical framework to summarily describe the concepts of major relevance. Secondly, the construct of CAF will be explained with the reasons as to why we have decided to develop on this construct. Third, the model of Cormus in speech production will be explained as it is the base model to understand L2 speaking cognitive processes. Fourth, we will relate the CAF and the Cormus model in more depth. Fifth, we will provide some of our own experiences as L2 speakers so we can finally deliver the teaching implications for the ability to speak in an L2 with fluency and confidently.
Firstly, it will be outlined some essential concepts, previous explaining the relationship between proficiency dimensions and Cormus modules. A fundamental concept for teachers to understand is that while students are at the beginning and intermediate levels of language learning, that is, while they are still developing, their proficiency, fluency, and accuracy often affect against each other. Before grammar rules become automatic and while learners are still incorporating essential vocabulary items, applying the rules and searching one's memory for the appropriate words may be effortful and laborious mental processes, which slow the learner's speech, making them seem disfluent. Likewise, language learners can sometimes speak quickly, without hesitating to apply the rules they have learned, but doing so may decrease their accuracy. Why we choose it? Because it has explicit applications regarding specific Cormus modules and processes in terms of how formulacity and its development may help and improve teaching and learning in second language acquisition. It's more specific and acute than willingness to communicate. We firmly believe that sociocultural factors such as intergroup climate and intergroup attitudes, ethnological vitality, may be developed from other areas than second language acquisition, such as social sciences. Additionally, it's more important than anxiety because it has cognitive implications regarding learning strategies, which in turn may decrease L2 learners' performance, fostering in this way foreign language anxiety.
The model proposed by Cormus is an explanation of the cognitive processes involved in L1 and L2 speech production. It is an adaptation to Levelt's previous work, which focused particularly on L1. The model consists of four main stages. First, there's conceptual preparation, which occurs in the conceptualizer, and is where speech production begins and the topic is chosen regarding the background knowledge. The more background knowledge about a topic, the more choices you have to deliver the message correctly in the way it is intended. When a concept is activated, it automatically activates other concepts related to that one. An example of this is when you think of the word mother. You then activate terms related to it, such as father, family, love, etc. The conceptualizer also involves sociolinguistic factors. Secondly, there's formulation, which is the process of mapping together the ideas in the speaker's mind through the correct mental lexicon and grammatical choices in order to formulate the correct words. Third, there's articulation, which is quite literally the activation of certain muscle groups in the articulatory system that allows us to speak. This is a physiological process, since it is how the mouth is moved and how it carries the message through sound waves produced by the human body. Fourth, there's a self-monitoring, which involves thinking about what to say and how. It is a key metacognitive process in speaking, and it involves checking speech for accuracy and acceptability. Effective monitoring depends on metalinguistic knowledge of pronunciation and grammar. The concept added by Cormus that differentiates his model from Levelt's is the addition of a large memory store, more known as long-term memory. He makes three subdivisions to better describe the content of this memory store. First, there's episodic memory, which contains the different episodes in one's personal life. To continue, there's semantic memory, which encompasses one's lexicon that appears in a hierarchical manner. These are activated through linguistic cues. Lastly, we have syllabary memory, and is responsible for the production of syllables, therefore is directly correlated to the articulatory system. Additionally, in the case of L2 learners, there's a fourth memory store called declarative memory, where speakers store their knowledge of L2 rules. This is because it is assumed that in L1 these rules are automatized. According to Kormos, speakers store their L1 and L2 all together, but advanced students have a high level of connection between both languages, whereas beginners think of them as isolated languages. This is what is denominated as an integrated lexicon, and this activation is parallel. It is important to note that not all phrases are constructed in a creative way by retrieving words and single concepts from the memory store. As said by Kormos, the majority of our utterances are combinations of memorized phrases, clauses, and sentences which together are called formulaic language.
Kormos model main characteristics are the modularity, the fact that each processing module is specialized in its particular function. It's not strictly serial, that is to say, its relations, arrows, are recursive and bidirectional. L1 and L2 share same mechanisms and shared knowledge stores. One of its main assumptions is that they are essentially the same. And it has an additional feature, the declarative knowledge store, which makes it bilingual. And here we have the components of the long-term memory and the semantic memory. And some essential concepts to understand how formulacity affects fluency and accuracy in relation to Kormos models are transfer, the influence of mother tongue on acquisition, language use, and comprehension, code switching, the use of two or more languages in the same discourse, and lim and lexemes, which are items in the mental lexicon that contain syntactic and morphophonological information, respectively. In terms of strengths and weaknesses, as cited by Kormos, her model is also able to account for the use of communication strategies, code switching, and transfer, and can accommodate formulaic language use as well as the development of encoding procedures. However, the model is quite sketchy in a number of respects, especially in the field of syntactic and phonological encoding. This aspect in regard to formulacity is key to understand how CAF proficiency constructs relates to Kormos modules. A formulaic sequence, according to Ray, is a sequence, continuous or discontinuous, of words or other elements which is prefabricated, that is, stored and retrieved whole from memory at the time of use, rather than being subject to generation or analysis by the language grammar. Thus, formulaic language formulas are strings of words, phrases, idioms, expressions, clauses, or even sentences retrieved from the mental lexicon as one unit. Formulas usually have a particular pragmatic function, such as requesting, apologizing, and so on. Thus, according to Pollack, a native-like control over a foreign language is not restricted to the knowledge of an ability to manipulate morphosyntactic rules or the possession of a vast vocabulary consisting of separate lexical entries, as well as idioms and idiomatic expressions. Of equal importance is the ability to choose those of them which would be used by a native speaker in a given situation. Advanced learners of English or other languages do need a command of a wide range of such prefabricated chunks of language or formulaic language, as it's more and more often called to be both accurate and fluent. Some strengths of formulacity. Formulacity seems to be a significant component of almost all types of discourse. Various studies suggest that at least 1/3 to 1/2 of language is formulaic. Prefabricated chunks of language by time required to prepare the rest of the utterance. This speeds up language production. The language flow seems less interrupted. There might be fewer hesitation pauses, and the utterance as a whole appears to be more fluent. According to many researchers, formulacity is the default setting for comprehension and production and allow native speakers to use analytic resources to deal with any difficulties caused by a speaker's thick accent, non-native grammar, background noise, disfluency, but also poetry or word plays, which may be related to self-monitoring, the speech comprehension system, and the lexicon in terms of complexity, the articulator and declarative memory store in regard to fluency, and with encoding processes mainly regarding accuracy. It relates with Kormos in this sense too. In various phases of speech processing, the model assumes that the major difference between L1 and L2 processing involves the competition of L1 and L2 items and encoding procedures, and the need for compensatory mechanisms in order to make up for missing knowledge in L2 production. In this sense, Pollack posits that the inability to retrieve a required English formula also leads to a partial or complete transfer from learner's native language. For example, when a beginner says, on a side or on a hand instead of saying on one hand or on the other hand. Or for other example, you have to see it. It won't be the lost time, for example. Probably the main problem concerning formulacity is in a foreign language lies at the very psycholinguistic core of the phenomenon. A formulaic sequence is acquired, stored, and retrieved holistically, which is contradictory to the way adult and teenage learners encounter a foreign language. That's why in teaching we need to foster interlanguage networks by increasing inputs and their quality, as well as enhancing analysis strategies to consolidate formulas consciously. Pollack highlights the aspect of the double function that formulaic language performs, saving effort in processing. Formulaic sequences function as compensatory devices for memory limitations and helping or even enabling individuals to establish social relations of different kinds.
In my case, I was born in a Spanish-speaking country, but my first language is English, so I never felt like I was learning a second language. I believe I have two first languages even though my fluency is better in Spanish than it is in English. This is because of everyday use of Spanish. Regarding Gomez's statement on how the storage of information of L1 and L2 are together, in relation to my experience, I completely agree. There are many times where I am talking in either English or Spanish and I can't remember a word in that language, but I do in the other. People around me usually laugh at how much Spanglish I use, and I now understand the reasoning behind this on a cognitive level. As I am an advanced student in terms of these languages, my connection or network between L1 and L2 is very high. There are many teaching applications we can take into consideration in order to make the learning process the most facilitating and enriching experience for the students. It is normal for students to make mistakes, no matter how much they practice. Now, regarding formulaicity, it is very easy to make a mistake in terms of accuracy when trying to use a particular idiom. Many students might want to use these formulaic sequences to sound more fluent in the language, hence using these correctly facilitates this acknowledgement and also eases the processing effort as they are processed faster than sequences that are generated creatively. But how can we guarantee the students will remember what is being taught and that they will use it correctly? The answer is we can't. What we can do is offer enough input and circumstances where they can put the input into practice. We can do this through meaningful communicative activities with their fellow classmates that are attractive to that specific class so they will remember it. For this to happen, material in the textbooks must focus repeatedly on what is expected to be learned with multi-focus practice exercises as well as in the teacher's speech. This allows the students to get familiarized with what they are learning. Moreover, learners need guidance in searching, noticing, and analyzing the expressions they usually extract from the internet or films so they can accurately use them themselves. Many foreign language students like to utilize these expressions as they seem more native-like to them, and that is the ultimate goal. So, using expressions taken out of movies, magazines, and internet media may be a fun way to help them understand the proper use of these sentence stems. To conclude, the need to understand the cognitive processes that occur while speaking is most important since as future teachers, we would like to promote not only the correct knowledge regarding lexicon and grammatical choices, but most importantly, the ability to communicate efficiently and confidently. Spontaneous interaction is the main goal as most learners learn a language with that specific purpose. Moreover, both EFL teachers and learners should understand the concept of formulaicity. It is not only catchy slang, expressions, common idioms, proverbs, and time fillers, but mostly it is hidden grammatically regular and semantically transparent sequences which when dominated is just the way a native speaker would say it. It is most important to consider these aspects of language to help guide students into fluent and confident communication through the correct exercises being practiced and the using of the correct tools to teach. Thank you very much for watching our video and we hope this information was useful for you. Goodbye!